All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order on June 28th, 2022. Owen J. Roberts, School Board of Directors, special board meeting for the purpose of interviewing candidates. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody would stand up. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join us in a moment of silence as we reflect on those serving in the United States Armed Forces, both past, present, the elected leaders of the state of Pennsylvania, and elected leaders of our nation. We have much to be thankful for. All right, thank you very much. Before we jump into the agenda, I'll just tell you a little bit about the format tonight so everybody understands what we're doing. So tonight's board meeting purpose is to interview each of the candidates that came forward and submitted their interest. We'll go around. We gave out the candidates 3 questions in advance, so you see that. What I'll do is just ask that we just go around the room. A board member just lead the questioning for each of the candidates, and I'll just go in order. So Dan, I'll just start with you, and we'll do that. And if there's any follow-up questions any of the board members would like to ask afterwards, we can do that, and then we'll go on to the next interviewee. Once we're done, and everybody has an opportunity to talk, we'll take a short recess, and then we'll come back for the voting board meeting. What we'll do is we'll allow public comment first before we do any voting, and then we'll get into the voting. And and Jackie, at that time, we'll go through that and get moving there. So with that, do we have the order here of interview? Is it here? Oh, say Selena is this the order? Oh, yeah, Selena's first. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So, Selena, are you here? Do you want to come? Is it easier to, if you want to just maybe, is it easier, more comfortable to sit at the end of the table and there's a microphone there? That way you're not like, we don't have to do podium and make you, it's, yeah, that'd be a little easier. We can just have a conversation. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Dan, and then you guys we can start.
Can I just ask a quick question? Are we allowing the candidates an opportunity to provide a personal statement first, or are we diving right into the questions?
Yeah, if you want to, if someone has something to say first, that's fine with me.
Okay. Did you have an opening statement you want to make first? Or
I did not. Sorry.
Okay. All right. In that case, no.
Okay. Lena, right? Lena, sorry. Could you please share your background, including the quality, skills, and experience that you would bring to the school board?
Sure. So my academic background is that I started my higher education journey at Montgomery County Community College, after which I transferred to Millersville University and pursued my bachelor's in anthropology, archaeology, and history. I took about a year and a half off to pursue a career at a company called Proconics as a project coordinator, where I mediated several high-tension deals between my company and the client. Then I started to work on my master's my Master's of Arts degree at Messiah University, where I also worked in disability services. After which I started working at the Pennsylvania College of Art and Design as their area coordinator for housing, and am now the director of residential life and student housing, as well as their Title IX coordinator. I have a very extensive background in working with Title IX as both an advocate as well as a contractor who comes in to audit schools and their policies and procedures on how that is implemented, and to recommend changes to ensure equitable access to education regardless of gender. These are all skills and experiences that I would bring toward the position, as well as being a community member myself.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Why are you interested in serving on the ONJ School Board?
So I was raised in this community by parents who were highly involved in things like PTA and Girl Scouts, and my siblings and I were all raised with a strong sense of serving our community. I would love to be able to give back to the community that I was raised in, as well as the one that I plan on creating family in. And I'd love to be able to impact the future of what this community looks like, especially at ONJ, when I do plan on having children in this area who will attend this school.
Hi. What do you believe are the responsibilities of a school board member?
It's my understanding that a school board creates the policies and procedures in which equitable access to education is created for the students' academic success. As an individual board member, it's your responsibility to come together as a team, putting aside personal opinions, to create those policies in a way that's fair and respectable to support students in that journey. Yeah.
Hello. What do you see as the greatest challenge facing public education today, and how would you as a school board member address these challenges?
So in my experience, what I'm seeing a lot in students who matriculate up to higher education is we're facing unprecedented numbers of mental unwellness with our students, specifically depression and anxiety, which I believe stems from formative years of development being in this pandemic. And it starts in the formative years of like middle school and high school and elementary school, where these experiences have halted certain developments and certain skills that they need to be able to interact with their peers properly and be able to socially develop. And I think it also plays into a sleep cycle. So I work in residential life, and I hear a lot from our students about sleep cycles. And I know, or at least I believe ONJ actually did a sleep study back in 2019, and how that impacted the students here. Mental unwellness like anxiety and depression play into that sleep deprivation, as well as that sleep deprivation cycles back to play into those illnesses as well. So I understand that there was two options that the school board was talking about, with a later start time as well as a like more flexible schedule, I think it was referred to as. At PCAD, the school that I work at, I was a part of the committee that created more block scheduling at later start times, so a little mix of both of the options that you guys talked about to help aid in those issues for our students to kind of alleviate that struggle.
Do we have follow-up questions from the board?
And you can ask any follow-up questions from the board members.
Anyone? Give me a second.
So did you go to ONJ?
I did,
Okay.
yes.
Anyone? Follow-up questions?
Oh, okay. I was waiting
I
for,
don't know. Can't think of
I was
one.
like filler.
I'm on the spot. I don't have one.
Do you have any particular, besides the mental health and sleep cycle issues, are there any other goals that you would have for our district?
From what I understand, ONJ is experiencing a bit of a Title IX crisis. And I would love to help implement some policies and procedures that properly train teachers on how to be mandated reporters to attempt to prevent some of the escalation of those issues, as well as implement some programming, some intentional programming to assist students in educating them on what things are or what certain issues are in Title IX and how to report.
Just let me interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
Just for the public's understanding, can you just give your definition of what Title IX means to you so that they understand
sure.
it?
Title IX is the federal statute in which it ensures equitable access to education, which prevents sexual harassment, sexual assault, as well as equitable access to the resources that a school provides.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lena?
Yes.
How would you describe your leadership style, and more specifically, how would you approach matters of disagreement? And how do you build consensus around an issue that you feel passionately about?
Sure. My leadership style is to be very candid and clear up front, to set very realistic and clear expectations, and then to assist as a team in meeting those expectations and those goals. You had other parts in that question. Could you repeat them?
So as far as consensus building around issues that you feel strongly about.
I have roughly 6 years' experience with mediations. It is, I think, vital to put aside personal opinion when trying to create that common goal of academic success for these kids. And as a mediator, I am very skilled at being able to help people put those personal feelings aside to work toward that common goal, as well as to reach a common ground on the team that everyone can at least be slightly happy with.
Do you have, aside from the schedule, the school schedule and mental health issues, do you have any other, in Title IX, issues like academic things that you are concerned about, or academic goals that you would like to see O&J to pursue?
Off the top of my head, those were the real 3 big things that I had thought about. Having taught an FYE course at Messiah when I was working there in disability services, things like active reading would also, and some more like study skills, I see are a struggle, especially for students who are matriculating up. I had a class of almost 40 students who did not know what active reading was. And that was prior to pandemic times. That was back in 2018. So I think that brushing up on those skills even as far in as senior year, so that they can academically succeed in higher education as well, if that is what they choose to pursue after high school, is vital.
All right, if there's no more questions, anything else you want to say before we let you go?
I don't believe so. No, I mean, asking for personal statements. I believe in the holistic development of students, and I believe that a board like this is all working toward that common goal, regardless of political affiliations and personal opinions, and that is what I would hope to help achieve.
Thank you so much for stepping forward. We really appreciate, and this goes to everybody, but anybody who steps up and does this is, it's a tough thing because it's a public thing as well too. So it's, I know it's like you're kind of on the spot, and so I appreciate you putting yourself out there and volunteering and stepping up for your community. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you all for your consideration as well and your time.
No, thank you. All right, so next we have Medili. Did I say that correctly? Close? Feel free to correct me, please.
It's Maidili.
Maidili, okay. All right. You guys want to start with Rita and then we'll go around?
First of all, thank you. I really appreciate, I know we all appreciate you putting yourself forward this way, so thank you very much. Please share your background, including the qualities, skills, and experience that you would bring to the school board.
Thank you all for having me over and giving me time to speak about myself and listening to me and spending the time. Thank you very much.
Can you speak louder? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Or closer to the mic.
Is it on?
It is.
Okay.
Takes a while to get used to it.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Is it better? Unlike her, I did not study here. I studied outside of the country. I studied in India, but I've been living here since '96. I spent most of my life in US, in this area, in Westchester, Downingtown area. I moved to West Vincent Township 2 years back. My kids grew up they were born and brought up in Downingtown. They went to Downingtown schools and had very successfully finished their high school and went to college. My daughter graduated recently from college with a master's in electrical engineering and robotics. And my boys are both finished their second year and going into the third year. Again, aerospace engineering and data analytics and music production. So my kids were all-rounded. They've done sports, they've done theater and music, and so I've been involved with them all through their school years, heavily involved in school with all their activities. I've been on board with on the robotics as a parent mentor, getting them to success into nationals and worlds. And I've always volunteered even at those events and activities. Whatever knowledge I have, I like to share. That's what I like to do. I spend most of my time with the kids, throughout. As a profession, I've been working at the higher education for more than 15 years. I worked for Bryn Mawr College and Ursinus College, and currently I work for Comcast as a project manager and scrum master. And I just felt I lost that connectivity with being with kids and involved with kids. But I have a lot to offer, and I didn't want to go based, so I'm here for that purpose.
Why are you interested in serving on this school board?
Like I said, I've been involved heavily with kids' activities, and I've felt very passionate about working with kids. And first and foremost, the goal of O.N.J. Roberts, that you do the right thing at the right time, took me off on that. I always believe that timing has to be right, and if you don't do things at the right time and the time is past, there is nothing you can do about it. And I strongly believe that, and that kind of resonated with my views. And I felt like I should offer what I've learned all these years. I created some good kids. I'm thinking I've done something good. That's why I have the good result here. And I thought, I should offer what I have and offer other kids, help other kids get there, do their best.
Thank you.
Hello. What do you believe the responsibilities are of a school board member?
As a school board creates policies and make sure they are implemented and followed. School board helps the administration run the school properly. I feel like I know that principals are the captains of the schools, and the school board is there to support the school principals and the superintendent to run the school properly, and that's their job as a school board.
Okay, great. So what do you see as the greatest challenge facing public education today? And how would you, as a school board member, address these challenges?
I see that a lot of mental health issues and social issues are pretty high. I've seen kids, even after high school, when they went to college, that doesn't go away. It increases more because the stress levels are more in college. And so that's definitely higher when you go to college. So I think school is the place where the kids are close to their parents and close to their family, and that's where you can teach them how to handle it, so that when they go out of school and away from their parents, they know how to handle themselves. Because I've seen so many kids at colleges committing suicides, which they shouldn't be. And even the parents don't know what's happening with the students. You don't want, as a parent, to be thinking what's going on in your child's mind when they are so far away from you. And one of the things I think to understand kids' personalities and what's going on is by developing relationships between administration and students, like teachers and students. I think one of those things definitely helps the student develop better, because when they know they have a good relationship with the teacher, the student has better mental stability, and also they do well in school academically. And teaching them how to handle stressful situations is most important. Not just treating them for what they have, but they need to know how to handle it when they're away. And I think that's very important. Let them know that they need to speak to someone. They need to come out of it, whatever the ways are. I'm not a therapist, in any sense, but as a mother, I just do what I can do with my kids.
Okay, thanks. John, do you have any? That was the fourth question, but.
I do. You worked in higher education at your Sinus and Bryn Mawr College. Could you tell us what your role was there and what you did professionally for the colleges?
So I'm in IT. I was a software developer and project manager and a Scrum Master. So I manage projects, but I could talk to the students because I didn't teach them. So I would listen to the problems that they're having in school as an administration perspective. They all talk in front of the tech office mostly, That's where the discussions happen. So you get to hear everything, all the problems students are having, what they like, what they don't like. And I would always, like, when they stop by to get something fixed or, had an issue, I would always ask them, so what's working for you and what's not working for you? Or where do you think the problem is? Because I'm always thinking about what my kids would do, I'm always thinking in that sense. That's why I'm like, I want to understand what goes on in a kid's mind. So yeah, I'm in IT. So I could definitely bring that technical and analytical skills on board. And the way I address things is based on data and not, just emotions. Because you have so many different kinds of students. It's not like you cannot make one rule that would fit everybody. So you have to consider data to see what is the outcome of it before you can implement anything. So I think that's very important.
Thank you. No questions? Well, thank you again. I appreciate you coming up and stepping forward because, this is it's a challenging thing, but it's a rewarding thing. So, and community members volunteering their time and stepping forward like this, we really do appreciate it and want to thank you for coming out.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right, next, Warren. Hey, Warren, how are you? All right.
I only know a handful of people in this room now, but my name's Warren Hampton. You may know of me through my other half, Heather McCreary, who served on the board and is a frequent visitor. I think it's important that I point out that we are two very different people, and we approach problems very differently. My wife has strong opinions. I do too, but they're different, and I'd like to be judged only on my own. So, that's about as much of an opening statement as I dare get into.
David, you can lead us off.
Whose turn now?
I understand that. Thanks for coming out. Please share your background, including the qualities, skills, and experience that you would bring to this school board.
Well, I got a bachelor's in political science from UMass in Eastern European foreign policy and election law. And then I went to law school. And after law school, I started out in Michigan doing defense work, which included a large part of the defense of schools and districts involving serious injury and death claims, contract claims, asbestos claims, and a claim involving a vending machine, which I got dismissed from this old surety lordship case from the 1800s, which was a hoot. Still one of my favorite things I ever did. As for my other skills and experience, I don't know if you received my resume.
Yes.
It's pretty detailed, I'm not going to read it, but I have been volunteering for this district for 19 years. I currently volunteer as one of the mock trial coaches. I've been doing that for a few years now. I've sat on many PTA boards. I was president of the middle school PTA for a while. I think pretty much everything in my line of work, in one way or another, can be helpful in encountering issues that are likely to come before a school board. There are, let's see. My interest in serving in the school board, frankly, is a continued extension of my public service and my public service to this school district. I think it's a great school district. I had 2 daughters go through here, wind up at great schools, end up with good careers. And I started volunteering in schools when I was a lawyer in Michigan because I think it's one of my obligations to give back to the community, and this is a way that I enjoy giving back to the community most. I have some financial background as I was a head of the church, Coventryville United Methodist Church. I was their finance chair for 13 years. Then I was taken on to the Central Conference Finance Committee for the Eastern Pennsylvania Conference for the United Methodist Church, so I have some finance background there. And served on various other boards. I was a judge of elections from May 10th to 2019 over here at the middle school. We did for a very little while here, and I kind of wished it had continued, but it didn't. We would have a meeting, an assembly before the elections, and then do a presentation to the students on this is how voting works and how you fill out your registration form and how you show up, and I showed them the machines and the tally boxes and all of that, and gave them basically a thumbnail sketch on how you would run an election, which is where I was taught down Westchester. In light of everything going on, I think we probably need that again, just so people understand how important it is, but also how safe it is. And I don't think opportunities for instruction should be missed, and that's an easy one. That's a civics lesson without interrupting the civics teacher's schedule. It's a maybe 2-hour little auditorium trip that breaks up the day. Should I just keep going, or?
That's a good question. That's good.
I'll take questions.
Did you, you told us a bunch about why you're interested in serving on the school board. Do you feel like you developed that fully?
What?
Have you developed that fully? Why are you interested? Should we move on to the next question?
Oh, well, let me hit a little bit more. There was some discussion, very well placed, about the children, the students and their mental health and their feeling about the community. I do think that's an important issue that needs some discussion and maybe some dialogue with the community and some listening sessions that could be helpful to get the community to re-engage with the district. We had an award-winning, I think they won this year, the indoor drumline. We had an award-winning robotics teams, award-winning DECA teams. We had mock trial, great marching bands, jazz bands, musicals, plays, orchestras. we tried to get a advisor for Model UN, but if we had a Model UN advisor, I could get that program off the ground in a blink of an eye. One of the fun things about doing mock trial is I get the privilege of meeting highly motivated students who work really hard and end up at great schools. And this is, I like to feel that this is a little part of it. And I did Model UN coming up through high school and college, and that got me better choices. And I think those are ways that we could engage the community to embrace this physical plant in this school district and have a better understanding of the challenges that the district has to face to educate the kids and to keep them happy. But it's also another way of actually getting everybody back out of their COVID funk and back to being a great community, because when this place is going full steam, it's a lot of fun. One of the things I wanted to try that never got off the ground, but was an interview workshop where we get grown-ups and family members to donate suits and dress wear, and then practice doing college interviews and practice doing job interviews, so that when the first time the student leaves the building for an interview, they've been to one or two. They've seen a couple of different faces. They've seen a couple of different interview styles. And most importantly, they've learned how to answer questions with confidence, which will hopefully get them the position or job that they're looking for. But I think that's a wonderful thing we could do if given the opportunity. So I guess that's interest in school board questions done.
Well, this last question should only take about 2 days. What do you see as the greatest challenge facing public education today, and how would you, as a school board member, address these challenges?
If you'd asked me that question a week ago, I'd have a very different answer. I think when you have a court that mixed free exercise and establishment, which creates kind of a possible problem for a board to deal with, and I'll leave that to the guys who pay for this, but that's an issue that's out there that's going to need to be discussed. I think that overall the biggest challenge of the school public education here is instruction in an environment where the teachers are surrounded by paraprofessionals, which isn't a bad thing. They're there because they have to be there. But they're also inundated with work from No Child Left Behind. And you know, at what point does the teacher get to teach and not be a counselor and a therapist and a clinician and fill in the other 6 boxes they're ticking, all for the same salary? And there's only so many minutes in the day. So that's an area that needs attention, I think, to help the teachers deliver their instructional message better and make their life a little easier. When you have school districts averaging between 25 and 30% of students on an IEP, that's a lot of administration time that has to go with each one of those students with an IEP. And while they've called for a rules change under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, we don't know where that's going to lead. So the education aspect needs to be a very serious focus. And if we can get community buy-in by explaining to them, look, this is what we have to do to teach your kid in 5th grade today. It wasn't the case 5 years ago, but this is what we have to deal with. Getting that buy-in and through communication and transparency, I think would help all involved achieve a better result. Anyone else?
Just, if you would, just on question 3, this responsibility of school board members versus, you know, that the governance of a school board, where does the board role start and admin
Policy.
stop?
You create policy, you make sure they're following policy. If they're not following policy, you address that. It's not to micromanage. It's not the job of the school board. School board's job is to implement the law handed down either by Department of Education or Pennsylvania Department of Education. And we deliver the policy to the administration does their job. That's why they get paid well. I mean, they've got a tough job, they have to do it, here's your policy. And if they're not doing it, then there's some measure of accountability. But it's not my job to micromanage whether they use the red stamp or the purple stamp on their envelope today. That's nuts. So, but that's just my opinion. Anyone else?
Follow-ups?
I have a quick follow-up.
Sure.
So you mentioned that you really enjoyed working with the highly motivated students. What are some ideas that you might have, or some programs that we could do to, help the students that are less motivated? What are some ways that we can bring everybody up?
Well, I have a strange perspective because I think all students are highly motivated. You just have to work with them to find out what gets them going. A lot of my work involves cerebral palsy cases and dealing with differently abled children who have very active, great brains, and they're locked in a body that limits their ability to express themselves. One of the jobs I had coming through college was I took notes for a fellow in a wheelchair who had cerebral palsy, and he was brilliant. And it took a couple of weeks for me to figure that out, and another couple of weeks to apologize for what an idiot I was for making assumptions about his intellectual capacity because he was locked in a wheelchair. And we became fast friends after that, but I think if there are any one of these, a number of these programs that can be adjusted to people with different skill sets, or for the lack of, robotics, for example, starts from the Lego League and goes all the way up through college in University of Michigan and Purdue and where all those folks go. But any one of these programs, whether it's music, whether it's arts, any of that, any student can participate in. All they need is the will and the willingness to work with them. But, I don't know, that's the way I've approached life, so,
Thanks.
yeah.
Warren, thank you very much. And just on a personal note, I love the mock trial program. My daughter Maddie went through there, and she did moot court in college thanks to that, and you guys helping her. So I'm a big fan of all the activities that we have at ONJ. It's whatever they are, and people who step up and volunteer in the community to help these programs is always good. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. All right, Aaron, are you up?
Hi, my name's Aaron Narr, so thanks for having me here.
April, you want to start us off?
Please share your background, including the qualities, skills, and experience that you would bring to the school board.
Sure. So I live in North Coventry Township with my wife and 2 daughters. My younger daughter is headed into 1st grade, and my older daughter is headed into 5th grade, both at North Coventry Elementary School. We've loved our experience there, really happy in the community. So my professional background in education are in business, more specifically finance, investment accounting, and executive leadership. Out of undergrad, I worked at SEI for several years, and while I was doing that, I studied to get my MBA from Villanova University. After that, I moved on to a hedge fund in New Jersey. From there, I jumped to work at BlackRock, where I worked for about 7 years. I worked in various roles there between the Wilmington and Manhattan offices. I left there in 2018 as a VP to take over the US branch of a small medical device distribution company, and I've been serving as the CEO of that company since 2019. And I continue in that role today. So I have experience working on diverse issues with large, diverse teams and across a variety of my professional roles, really. While at BlackRock, I also served as the business manager for technology and operations teams that ranged in size from 800 to 1,600 people, and we had 8 to 9 figure budgets. So I think the relevance there is that I'm familiar with the size and scope of the OJR district from both a personnel and a financial perspective. I also, really learned the value of data-driven decision-making in my time working at BlackRock. So I think that's very valuable and can play a big, part when you're working in a governance role and you really have people with competing views. What do you go to? I gravitate towards what does the data tell us to do? My current small business that I do run in the US is regulated by the FDA. So that's to say I have experience working in a highly regulated environment as well. I also have experience working with legal teams, HR teams, marketing, finance, and all manner of stakeholders. So, coming from business, I do fully recognize that there are significant differences between the academic community and the corporate world. And I wouldn't suggest that it's a one-to-one skill transfer, but I do believe that, the experience I have, partnered with, since I have a variety in my background, I've learned the importance of listening, learning, having that mentality. And I do think that would position me well to apply that variety of experience to really contribute to the board position.
Why are you interested in serving on the school board?
Sure. So my interest in serving on the school board comes as an extension of my interest in being involved with and volunteering in support of the community. I've served as a volunteer soccer coach for more than the last 7 years. The last 2 years, I was the head coach for my older daughter's travel soccer team with Coventry Soccer. It's something I've really enjoyed. I also served as the judge of elections, so I know that that's, hard work. I was the interim judge of elections for NC Zone 1 when somebody was needed to do that in the last general election. I recognize that the school board is a much broader role, but the spirit that motivated me to volunteer as a coach and to step up and work as the election judge official is the same mentality I think that brings me here today. I have those 2 young elementary-age children in the district, so I really care deeply about the future of the district, and I hope it remains a wonderful place to grow and learn for all children. I've attended school board meetings in the past, so I do understand the complexity and the delicacy of the issues that come up, and I'm willing to put in the time and effort to fully understand whatever future issues do arise, to make sure I'm well positioned to help make a well-rounded decision, because I know it will affect the lives of a diverse set of people across our district. I believe my previously mentioned background does give me the aptitude to make that positive impact, and that I can help the OJR community, improve the outcomes for our students. And also, of course, I have that financial background, so always being mindful of the cost to the community as well.
Thank you.
What do you believe are the responsibilities of a school board member?
So as I understand it, the responsibility of a school board member is really to handle the governance issues. Changes to district policy, curriculum, budget, or any other issues that affect students across the district. I find it helpful also sometimes to note, and I think I've heard this in some of the other answers as well, is, what is out of the scope as well. So, while there can always be exceptions, I do recognize that the school board is generally not responsible for individual student issues or specific classroom issues, which are most often going to be best left for the teachers and the administration to handle. I also think it's important to note, the day-to-day management really falls to the administration. I would want to be cognizant of maintaining that 30,000-foot view in most instances, because I think that's, really the board's role, taking that district-wide view. Of course, there can be exceptions. I can speak to my own interactions with North Coventry Elementary, where we've had a wonderful experience with the faculty and staff. The NC team has been extremely supportive, communicative, and transparent. And I believe that it's part of the responsibilities of the school board to ensure that this high standard is met at every school in the district. Each school should have a positive environment that is respectful, where the children feel that they belong. Really, we've been here for a few years, and we love it. And I just want to make sure, I view this as an opportunity to make sure that everybody else is having that same really positive experience that my family's had so far. I think having the opportunity to sit on the board, it's an opportunity to participate in the strategic level planning for the district, setting district-wide policy and evaluating the results of our actions. Something I certainly, have taken from my work experience is the importance of setting measurable goals, and holding yourself accountable for the results.
So, Aaron, what do you see as the greatest challenge in public education on the broader scale today?
Sure. So, I thought this was, when I got the questions, this was the doozy one on there, like, oh man, where are you going to go with it? But I was actually, I think there are a few right answers by my estimation. My first, just from my background, my first thought was, go with the funding. I know the charter school mandates have been, a real challenge, and I've heard them brought up in school board meetings before. But I actually chose to go in a different direction that I've heard a couple other people answer as well, which I thought was great. I wasn't sure that would be the case. I would focus my response on the mental health challenges that have been well documented as being an ever-increasing crisis within, this is across school districts, but including ours. And I know that affects students and faculty alike. I saw, my research here trying to prep for the role. The most recent PSBA survey said 86% of respondents cited addressing social emotional issues as their top instructional challenge. I thought that was a pretty remarkable answer. As a member of the school board, I would look to ensure we continue to focus our gaze on this vital issue and push to make sure we're exploring all avenues of improving support and increasing available resources. This includes options such as partnering with the local mental health agencies. I know Dr. Stout mentioned working with UPenn last week, exploring local vendor options, continuing engagement with the CCIU, or even sharing services with other local schools potentially. Volunteer parent-led community groups like the Mental Health Advocacy Committee are another great resource to explore, and it's something I'm personally familiar with through my wife's involvement. I'm really confident that this is an issue that actually we can tackle, because I've really pleased to hear there's bipartisan support, and everybody agrees that it's a problem and a problem that we can address. So as a board member, I would look to ensure that we continue to actively engage on that with the administration and outside resources, and that we are effectively communicating the actions and progress to the community, because I think that's a big component of it. I always, the more I learn that there's a lot going on, and it's just not always that everybody knows about it in the community. So yeah.
All right, thank you so much for coming out. As
Thank
I
you
said
all.
to the other candidates, we do appreciate you stepping up, because it's community volunteering, here, the coaching, all that stuff that makes the community work. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate the opportunities.
Thank you. Beth, are you here?
I never sat at this table. Here we go.
I'm starting? Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome.
So-
Kathy, you're up.
Do you want to give an opening statement before we?
I do.
Okay,
It's
go for
very
it.
short. I just want to say, Dr. Stout, President, for all members of the board, Mrs. Carmine, thank you.
Okay, then I'll go on with the first question. Can you please share your background, including the qualities, skills, and experience that you would bring to the school board?
Okay. So I'm from here as a teacher. So I have a lot to do to convince you to hire me to be on the school board. So as a former teacher and of O&J for 17 years of my almost 24 years of teaching, and a parent of 3 O&J Robert students who all graduated and got jobs. They went to school, they all got jobs. Thank you. I bring a lot of real life experience to the table as a potential school board member. I've spent many hours with students, with peers, with parents, administrators, school board members at meetings, and in many situations to help to make everything function so well. And I know the grass isn't greener. Like, this is really a great, Aaron, it's going to be great here for you till they graduate and beyond. I mean, it's just a great district. And I've been in several, okay? Creatively and with help of peers and administrators, I was able to get through a wonderful tenure at O&J, and that's the truth. And I am comfortable speaking to the many members of the district, okay? As a former business owner, because this is like my 3rd career, and I really believe if you don't like it, get another job. So I did that several times. And I owned businesses, which I loved, but labor was a nightmare. So as a business owner, I understand balancing a budget, ordering, maintaining accurate, up-to-date accounting records, dealing with vendors. I did all that for like 20 years. Okay, it was exhausting. Okay, I maintained happy staff, happy clientele. I did very well. I was able to sell and get my kids into college. That's what it was all about, right? Okay, I recognize the need to run a budget-oriented district. My husband and I, like many in the community, are retired. So I get it. We're on a fixed income, okay? So all that would help me be great on the board. And I'm not sitting still right now that I retired. I was miserable retired, miserable, because I retired early due to family health issues. And I was so unhappy that a friend who teaches at the middle school let me come in last year and decorate her room for the school year. I was really just struggling with the whole thing. So now I volunteer with the PDE. I teach immigrants English. So I don't know if I'm learning better Spanish or they're learning better English, but I'm not sitting still. I'm doing things out, but they're adults, they're not kids. It's totally different because they do their homework and beyond. But it's all that stuff that I like to be busy, and I would love, obviously, to work with all of you on the board. Next question.
Ola,
Hi.
why are you interested in serving on the OJR School Board?
So nobody's given this answer, and this is awful. But when Uvalde, which still is so upsetting, and Buffalo happened, I couldn't sit still, and I needed to do something. So besides writing to all 198 members of the Pennsylvania House, and the members that are also in Washington, because I did all that, I still wasn't happy. And talking to my husband, I said, it's awful. So he said, well, you start local, and local is the school board. So believe it or not, that was the very odd inspiration for me to get busy and think about serving on the school board. I know that's not what you'd expect to hear. And obviously, I hope to have a positive impact. I always see the glass as more than half full. And hopefully with the group, I could do that. I know O&J, and I'm so proud of it. I really am, and it's not a suck-up. And so I would love to work with you, and it starts with your local district to make things run well in this country. I know that's weird, but it's the truth. Okay. Okay.
So what did you teach while you were at ONJ?
French and Spanish.
French and Spanish.
And now I had to go get certified for ESL, and I kept saying to the PTE, I want my Act 48, and they're like, you don't need Act 48. I was like, but I really want Act 48. I'm like 5 credits away from keeping my certificate going. They're like, you don't get Act 48 for this. But I had to go get certified for ESL for what I'm volunteering for.
Thank you for, I diverted off the script here, but it's curious. So, and having not done well in French, we won't be
You would have
doing.
with me.
So, what are the roles of the school board? Like, what's your view of the responsibilities that we do?
Okay, I Googled that, to be honest. And what Google said was a school board member is responsible for 3 aspects of the district: planning, setting policy, and evaluating results. And that's the end of the quote. Okay, as an entrusted member, we need to pay attention to the laws. We have to know the state laws because we have to make sure that we don't do anything that will get us in trouble. Okay, and we have to ensure that the district knows what to do, how to accomplish it, and how to create policies to enable those goals. And that means working with everybody in the school district. Okay, so that's basically what I found and I believe. And it's very important. It's so important to work together. So we're not so much the boss, but we need to collaborate with everybody, especially administrators who then go, I don't want to say down like it's below, but to the teachers and to the aides and to the students to make sure everything flows very smoothly. So I know my answers are really short, I'm sorry.
What do you see as this is the same question everybody else has been asked so far. What do you see as the greatest challenge facing public education today, and how would you, as a school board member, address those challenges?
Okay, so this is a long answer because I couldn't think of just one. I mean, I really feel that there are so many, and somebody else had said that too. But as a recently retired teacher last year, the staff shortages were a nightmare. And staff shortages lead to teachers being frustrated, administrators being frustrated, and then the students don't get everything that they need. when there's a staff shortage, when there aren't enough subs, for example, and when there aren't enough paraprofessionals to keep everything running smoothly. Okay. When teachers have to cover because other teachers are absent, and with the pandemic, it's been a nightmare, then the teacher who has to cover for they don't get their downtime to call parents, to get a hold of students, to make sure. I mean, I used to do a lesson, and if my kids didn't like the lesson during my free period, I would change it. I mean, they would tell me that was boring. I go, excuse me, and I was horrified. And during that downtime, I could ramp it up, change things. And if you're constantly covering because of shortages, that doesn't happen. So I know that's not what everybody's saying, but that's what I think is a mess. When we have to fill the gap because we don't have the subs or the paraprofessionals, it's exhausting for everybody. The secretaries are busy trying to, put the puzzle together so every class is covered. And then the teachers get angry and the subs get angry because the subs who are there don't get the downtime. They're constantly going to the teacher they're in for and then to fill in for everybody else who doesn't have somebody there. I've seen subs that only had lunch. That was it. They went 7 periods of classes at the middle school and lunch. And then do they want to come back? I mean, I was asked, do you want to sub? I was like, I know what you do with subs. I can't sub in this district. It's exhausting. So that's like a big one. But then I had more, like bullying. Like bullying's a mess. And we can't always catch it because it happens in the classroom, in the cafeteria, in the hallways. And now, and I'm only a middle school person, but the cafeteria and the LGI and the lobby were all used for eating. So we couldn't keep our eyes on everything. You had one person on duty in the LGI with a lot of kids. Or how about on the school bus? Or how about online? Or how about at the bus stop? So we need to somehow either check with other districts where it worked well, maybe, come up with some way that we can address bullying because it leads to these social issues and a lot of people feeling badly about themselves. So bullying is big. And then there was one more, the pandemic, the stinking pandemic that won't go away. And it just is still here. And one of the reasons I'm asking is I walk with a friend and Saturday she told me she had COVID and we walked Friday. So I've been like sticking things up my nose and being extra careful because of this pandemic that won't go away. So far I feel good. Okay, but it left so many kids struggling mentally, socially. They didn't know how to behave anymore. So I know that's more than one, but that's what they're the 3 that I came up with really quickly. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Any follow-up questions?
Oh, good.
Thank you so much, and thanks for your service here as a teacher. I mean, that's amazing that you want to come back and serve again. So.
It's hard to separate me, but seriously, on the school board, I know the difference. I was in the union, and I sat with the school board at negotiations, and I know what it's all like, and I know I'd have to leave the whole teaching thing in a way, but still, it's kind of nice. Mm-hmm. So, anyway, thank you.
Well, thank you. All right. Nick, you are up. All right.
Good evening. Thank you for taking this time. I appreciate it. I appreciate all your service and your work. So I just want to generally thank you all for everything you do for our schools.
And do you have an opening statement or something?
That was my opening.
Okay.
statement.
I like it.
Everything else in my responses. Okay.
Okay. Could you please share your background, including the qualities, skills, and experience that you would bring to the school board?
Sure. I had a wonderful 39-year full-time career in public education. I taught English. I was a high school principal. I was an assistant superintendent. I spent 25 wonderful years in administration in the Haverford School District as a principal and an assistant superintendent. In those roles, and at the principal level, of course, managing budget, evaluating staff, student discipline, curriculum and instruction from the high school point of view, programming. And then when I moved over to assistant superintendent, I did all those same roles, of course, on a district level. Was much more involved in the human resources domain. I was the assistant principal for curriculum instruction and assessment, which was 100% of my job. But as I used to joke with my superintendent, the other 50% of my time I spent in the human resources office, because our human resources director was an attorney who was mainly involved on the contract side and wasn't an educator. So I was very involved in the hiring, firing, when as needed, teacher discipline process, investigations process. Since retiring from my full-time work, I worked for the Department of Education in the overseeing school improvement grants with struggling schools. I've taught school law for a couple of universities for 15 plus years, and I supervise student teachers. So I believe I understand how schools and districts work or don't, from the inside out and from the outside in. And I think, I love our community. I think our schools do a wonderful job, and I would like to do this service to the school district community.
I think you started to get into that. So after your small time with education, why are you interested in serving on the Owen J. Roberts School Board?
Sure. So I'll give you 3 reasons. And if you read and committed to memory the letter that I wrote in applying, a lot of this is going to sound redundant because I thought this through very carefully. First, as I said, we moved here 12 years ago. We love the community. When we first moved here, I was still working an assistant superintendent schedule. So, I was 24/7. And got involved in activities through our church, St. Elizabeth's, the Interfaith Action Community, and other committees there. And then gradually, as I was moving towards retirement, got involved in community committees. I assisted with elections. I'm now on the Open Space Committee as well. I started attending school board meetings in person shortly after Dr. Stout was appointed, when school boards became kind of the front line in the culture wars, and I felt that compelled to speak out in support of public education. I think I would be a useful asset to the board. I'd be very committed to the work and the understanding of schools and how school boards function. Teaching school law all these years has, you really do study school boards. That's a big aspect of it. What are school boards' responsibilities? What can school board members do and what they can't do, and those kinds of things. So I hope I answered your question.
Nick, what do you believe the responsibilities are of a school board member?
Well, to start with the most general, I think we always have to remember that we represent our communities. We represent our children and parents to give them the best education possible at a reasonable, affordable cost. And I would say my experience in the Haverford School District was really important here, because we were known and are still known as giving parents and families the best bang for their buck. And we did that by resisting becoming what I would call an additive model, where every bright, flashy program that comes along, you add it without scrutinizing and saying, what's not bringing us value anymore? What can we, what needs to be cut or cut back, or what can we do in those ways? So that's a big responsibility. All our communities are our senior citizens, of course, all our residents. We manage and evaluate the superintendent. That's a major function. Policies, long-range planning. We oversee progress of our programs, and are we offering the best possible programs, again, at a reasonable cost. So, that's a broad overview, but yeah, certainly developing and revising policies, overseeing the program, overseeing the progress of our students, bringing the best opportunities possible to our students.
Hi, Nick. What do you see as the greatest challenge facing public education today, and how would you, as a school board member, address those challenges?
Sure. I would say there's two, and they're very intimately connected. The first is building or rebuilding public confidence in public education. All of these things that are draining our resources, charter schools, the potential for vouchers, these education tax credits, they are symptoms. The problem is the public confidence in the public schools. If people believed that they were getting everything they needed or everything they should be getting from their public schools, these options would, fade into the background for many people. And so those two are intimately connected, funding and public trust and confidence. It's like everything else. You're not going to be willing to invest a lot in things that you don't have confidence in. Now, a number of people have addressed, and there's no doubt, our kids are facing a mental health crisis. Okay, that means staff and resources. We can't expect our teachers to, take a break from teaching algebra to do counseling. So where is that going to come from? Are we going to just keep adding costs, or are we going to scrutinize things we're already doing to determine if they're giving us the value that we either thought they did at one point in time and don't anymore? And the second half of your question, what would I do? I think transparency in an organization is like communication. You're never there. You're never there where everybody in whatever organizations you work in, people will say, wow, the communication here is just perfect, And the same is true of transparency. So what would I do? Ms. Crumrine, I thought your March budget presentation was full of detail, very interesting to read and to participate in. But I think your public is ready to see more granular presentations, like what are these programs actually costing us? I'm sorry, is that my timer? I mean, I could go on forever. So I'll just pick out one example, okay? I know you have, and I have really studied your programming elementary through high school closely, because I believe that's, as a taxpayer and concerned member of this community, it's our responsibility. So let's talk about your international baccalaureate program. I know you have an international baccalaureate program. I don't know how popular it is, how well attended it is. I'm just picking that out as an example. You also offer a full slate of AP programming. Once you say you're offering an international baccalaureate program, you have to run those courses, or you're not running an international baccalaureate program anymore. Now, they may be very popular and very well attended, but are they redundant to all your AP program offerings? Here's another question. I've brought this up a couple times in public, and you have all this advanced programming. Why are there so few national merit scholars here and semifinalists here? If you look at local districts, we're all being outperformed in that area. Now, why? Because you have all these kids taking these programs. Why? I mean, that's something I'd want to know. And I think presenting programs to the public, you know, you have a very educated public here. And I think showing them, again, that granular level, like half-hour presentations, not at committee meetings where, you know, like David said, when was the last finance committee meeting? So people aren't getting to, you know, go into great detail of these. I would spend a half hour at each of the public meetings and do a presentation on some of these programs and what value are they bringing us? What do they cost in terms of staffing and all? Yeah, I'd like to see follow-up on the robotics program that's being implemented. We've added staff. What's it bringing us? So, and I mean, I could go on and on several other programs that I've looked at and thought about here, like everyday math, but I don't want to take up your time with that. But I mean, I think those are the ways I would respond to it. Transparency, you know, show the public more details, what's behind the curtain of what do these cost.
Any more follow-up questions?
I have a follow-up. So, Nick, I've seen you at a lot of the meetings here, if not almost every one of them, and no doubt you have a wide range of experience and background in public education. So I'm curious, what would you gravitate towards as far as serving on a committee of the board? What would be your area of interest? What would you want to participate in the most that you feel you could really, you know, have an impact?
Well, I'm most knowledgeable about curriculum instruction and assessment. So, but I would serve anywhere you asked me to. And I would see it as an educational opportunity for me.
You talked a lot about getting the bang for your buck type of thing. I'm wondering if you could give us just general principles. We obviously struggle with the budget here because of our, you know, terrible economy right now, and trying to get more money to do these programs is just really difficult. Do you have any kind of like general principles as you were to approach a budget of 100 and some pages of how you would look at that, and how would you go about deciding what to look at as far as are we getting our bang for our buck?
Yeah, you just passed the budget, right? Not unanimously, because you know, there are areas that I had these kind of questions about. Why aren't we seeing this at a more granular level? You start now at looking at everything and saying, what's bringing us benefit? What maybe isn't bringing us the value that we thought it was going to? What are your enrollment trends in different places? I mean, you have to start studying that a year out. You know, I'm surprised there's really only one big budget presentation here. I think the public would benefit from more and more detail. And, you know, I think you got to pull back the curtains and say, you know, what would a $250,000 or $500,000 cut mean? And is the public willing to sacrifice these things, or do they believe they need to be supported? Languages, for instance. Are all your languages, are the trends, are they all equally popular? You know, I remember we cut a German program in the Haverford School District. Now, it was unpopular among the very small number of families that were still taking German, but the cost didn't justify the benefits of a couple of staff members for maybe 20 kids, you know? So, I mean, I think, again, you have to look at it a year out, and you have to look at it at that level. Trends, you know, what are we running that maybe you look at it and say, why are we still running this? You know, is there redundancy?
Well, Nick, as I said to everybody else, thank you for coming out and volunteering your time and offering yourself up for the community. I think it's great to everyone. What we'll do now is I'll tell you a little bit about the process here. We're going to take a little break here. It's been a long, start. Brian, when we publish the meeting, do we have to start at the published
Yeah,
time? Right?
We
Okay,
have to start at
okay.
7:15, unfortunately.
Okay, all right. So unfortunately, because the way the agenda works, we have to start the next voting meeting at the time, so we have to break until then. I would like to go into it, but I guess we can't. And then we'll come back, and the only agenda item at that point is going to be to appoint the new school board member. And we'll do the voting here. So what we're going to do is, Jackie, you'll do that, just so everybody understands how we're going to do that. We're just going to, each board member is going to pick their top 3. We're going to narrow it down to 2 people, and then we're doing a roll call vote to send in majority. That'll be the appointment for the board. I think everybody here, I mean, would make a good school board member. I'm not afraid of anybody here being seated at the table, so that's a very good thing and a good feeling that we have people all stepping up to volunteer to be part of the school board. So I appreciate that. Go ahead,
Can you
Ricky.
clarify, we will have public comment when we return?
We will have public comment when we come. Yeah, it's a voting school board meeting, so there'll be, before we take any vote, there'll be public comment.
And also, I would just caution that there would be no deliberation during this break. Any deliberations, which would be a discussion to lead to the vote, will be public also.
Well, thank you for an opportunity to talk about something I care very passionately about. If you sat next to me at a barbecue or a restaurant or something and said, so what do you do? I'd be likely to say all the same things to you there. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. So, so 7:15 is the published time? Yeah, sorry, we weren't really sure how long that would go, so we had to pick a time. All right, so we got 20 minutes to be here, so we'll, okay, guys, I'm going to call the meeting to order of the Owen J. Roberts School Board special meeting to elect our new school board member. I'm going to, I guess, technically, I know we said the Pledge of Allegiance once. I mean, I think we can count if we're okay, everybody's okay, we counted it. All right, so the first agenda item is going to be public comment. So if there's any public comment on our one motion that we'll have is to fill the board vacancy. Is there anything on Zoom? No? All right. I believe this is the first board meeting I ever had that wasn't public. I'm not going to try to I'm not going to jinx myself. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I will skip the long dissertation on public comment, and then I'll just go right into the motion to fill the board vacancies. I'm going to explain just a little bit how we're going to do the voting, which is similar to last time, if anybody saw it last time, since we have multiple members to try to get it down. We're just going to go through, I'm going to ask everybody to give me your top 3 choices in order, okay? You know, one first, your second choice, third. So we're going around the room, and the purpose of that is Jackie's going to tally that and get it to the top 2 vote getters, and then we're going to do roll call vote right away on those 2. We'll have, board discussion, and anybody wants to comment on advocate for whoever, that's fine at that point, and then we're going to vote on that. And the reason being, we're just trying to get to a majority vote versus, where you could have not that if we don't do it that way. So that's why it looks like that. So with that, I'll ask Ms. Crumrine if you would do a roll call vote alphabetically. And again, it's first choice, second, 3, and everybody is super qualified. I know this is the horrible part of the meeting, but we're going to get on with that. So Jackie, you go ahead.
And just one clarification, the one vote will be equal to 3 points, the
Right,
second
sorry.
place vote will be equal to 2 points, and third for 1 point when we're tallying up to figure out who our top two candidates are.
Okay.
This may seem like a small thing, but I'm just curious, do we have to state the full name, or is first name suffice?
I think we could do first name, and if there's any question, Jackie can ask.
Since they're all different, I think that's,
Yeah.
we're safe.
Yeah. So
Okay, are you ready, Mr. Friel?
I am.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Doherty, would you please name your top three?
Sure. Lena, Nick, and Aaron.
Thank you. Mr. Friel?
I am Nick, Aaron, and Beth.
Thank you. Mr. Hermanos?
In order, I've got Nick, and then Beth, and then Midhilly.
Thank you. Mrs. DiMarino?
Lena, Nick, Aaron.
Thank you. Dr. Melnizek? Mrs. Munson is not here this evening. Mrs. Peterson?
Nick, Aaron, Beth.
Thank you. And Mrs. Sabo?
Nick, Aaron, Lena.
Thank you.
We'll play the short intermission music while Ms. Crumrine
Sure.
tabulates. We'll give you a
Thank
minute
you.
now. You don't want that. I'll clear the room. I'm pretty sure even Mrs. DiMarino couldn't teach me to sing.
Can I just, may I ask a clarification, Mr. Subers? Regarding the rank, like for number 1, 3 points assigned to each. So we're just going to say the top
2.
for top 2 overall or overall? Okay, just making sure.
3 points for the number 1 position.
Thank you.
How about For Good? Can we sing that?
Yeah.
How about agony?
Okay, would you like to know the top 2?
No. Change yes, please.
We have Nick Bertoli with 19 and Aaron Narr with 10.
Okay.
Mr. Subers, are you in agreement?
Yes, I had the same tally.
All right. So now I'll open up to the board for, Brian, can I make a motion to put them both on, and or do we have to do it individually?
I would, when we actually make the motion, it would just be called roll call, and then each board member would
Pick their
pick their
okay,
candidate.
okay.
And with that in mind, you can ask for your board discussion. Like that way.
Yeah, right, okay. So I'm going to ask for the board discussion, if there's any discussion on any candidates. Any questions? All right.
I think they're both really great candidates. You know, they both bring a lot of experience in different facets. I really like Nick a little bit better because of his experience within the you know, school board system, and I think that's probably one thing where we as a board you know, kind of lack that, you know, kind of behind the scenes you know, information. And so I think he'd be a really great check on, you know, our administration, because he kind of, you know, might be aware of some, you know, behind the scenes things that we don't, you know, generally see from our point of view.
I also just appreciated his experience with the budgeting and possibly evaluating programs and looking at things that may need to be changed, because obviously we can't just keep escalating costs. We may need to make some hard choices, and there are maybe some things that aren't serving us that we haven't talked about.
Yeah, I'll just say, the other thing I'd consider with, to put the devil's advocate there is with Aaron and having younger kids in the district, and we're looking for some longevity, and it's nice to have folks on the board over time who have, kids in the district. Plus his resume reads a lot like mine, so I have a bias there. So,
Yeah, he likes
had me with data.
we
and
need two of
financial
you?
He
and
likes
all.
data-driven stuff too
Yeah,
much.
I know. I was like, wow, someone will say that as much as me. So I might have a bias. But yeah, so, and I think, everybody who stepped up here again, thank you very much. With that, I guess we'll, do I call the roll call vote, Jackie, or are you going to call the roll call vote?
I can call the roll call vote, Mr. Friel.
All right.
There's no discussion, correct? We're done with discussion?
That was, we're done with
That's the
discussion?
All right.
All right, you can call the vote.
Okay, Mrs. Sabo?
Do you need full names for this one?
Um,
No,
No,
don't.
we know who you
No,
are. We
we're
know who
fine.
you're saying.
We're fine.
Nick?
Mrs. Peterson?
Nick.
Dr. Malnazek?
Nick?
Mr. Hermanos?
Nick?
Mr. Friel?
Aaron?
Mr. Doherty?
Nick?
Mrs. DiMarino?
Nick?
6-1, that's Nick. Congratulations.
Well, thank you, and thank you, everybody, for participating. We really appreciate that, and with that, we are adjourned.